So in this video, I want to talk about the 4 levels of protein structure and their shape. And so proteins, as you know, are made up of amino acids. So proteins are made of amino acids. And so the proteins that we usually think of, they're big globular things, for example, hemoglobin. Um, and so there are 4 types of structures that make up proteins. And it's probably better if I give you a diagram and then explain it. And so here we have the 4 structures of proteins. So number 1 is a primary structure. Primary structure. And this is just simply the sequence of amino acids. So it's the sequence of amino acids. And so it's essentially the bare minimum of a protein and is shown up here. And so then comes the secondary structure. So let me erase this. So secondary structure. And what the secondary structure is like the different amino acids interact with each other, and then as a result it coils or folds. And so the secondary structure is defined as coil or folded shape of the amino acids that are held together by hydrogen bonds. And so you can either have alpha helices or beta plated sheets, and those are the 2 types of secondary structures that can occur. As you can see here, alpha helix is above here, and then the beta plated sheet is down there. And so it essentially, you're starting to have like a 3D structure instead of like a straight chain. And so third is the tertiary structure, which is actually more like 3D. And so we'll talk about that. Let me erase this. And so tertiary structure. So for the tertiary structure, there's a lot more bending and folding of the proteins. And the different R groups of the amino acids are either hydrophobic or hydrophilic, and they fold to avoid water or come in contact with water. And so in the tertiary structure, this is 3-dimensional. And so tertiary structures are where proteins, it's the structure where proteins are actually seen. A secondary structure can't be considered a protein. So the tertiary structure, you can see globular proteins as well as fibrous proteins. And so the globular proteins are like the proteins in cell membranes that move around freely in the muscles. Typically proteins that actually do stuff, while fibrous proteins are more of like proteins in muscles and in the skin. And globular proteins can actually also be hormones sometimes. And finally, let's talk about the quaternary structure. So the 4th, I guess, stage of proteins. And so quaternary structure. And so from primary to tertiary structure, that was all one chain of amino acids. But for quaternary structure, it can be a whole bunch of polypeptides or amino acid chains. And so it's essentially defined as two or more separate polypeptide chains. And the example that everyone likes to use is hemoglobin as a quaternary protein. But remember, not all proteins have a quaternary structure. Not all proteins are made up of more than one polypeptide chain. And so as you can see down here, there are different colors right there, there, here. This whole quaternary structure is made up of 4 different polypeptide chains.